Oh, welcome everyone. I'm so excited to have my beautiful, talented friend Regina here today. She's an amazing agent from California, and I'm going to let her start by introducing herself, first, last name, or I already said her first name, first, last name, where you're selling real estate, Regina, and how long have you been in real estate?
Wonderful. Jackie, thank you so much for inviting me today. My name is Regina Vanicola. I am a realtor here in Santa Monica, California. I run a small team, and I've been in the business almost 20 years now.
Okay, perfect. So this small team, Regina, what was your volume last year? I know you have a high average price in comparison to a lot of places in the country. So tell us
Sure.
about that. Your average price, how many transactions volume last year?
Sure. Our average price is about 1.9 million. That's actually an introductory sort of level here in Santa Monica. We did, I think, 56 transactions last year, including maybe a few handful of leases. And we did about 75 million in total sales.
Amazing. Tell us about your team. What's the structure of your team?
Sure. I'm the lead listing agent. Of course, I lead the team. It's the Regina Vanicola Real Estate Group. I have two buyers agents on my team, and they both sell a ton of real estate. And I have a full-time executive assistant. She works mostly on the listing side of the business and the preparation of our properties and things like that. And I also have a full-time operations manager. She's our transaction coordinator. She has functions for compliance and HR and things like that. I have a full-time marketing director, and we have a part-time receptionist on the weekend.
Beautiful. Amazing. Do you know what the breakdown was of listings sold and buyer sales last year?
Sure. Last year, I actually had I was out of work for several months last year. Unfortunately, I had COVID in November of 2020, and took a long time to recover from that. And so last year was a very different year than most of our years, and about 60% was on the buyer side and 40% on the listing side.
Mhm.
Previous years were anywhere from 60 to 90% on the listing side.
Amazing. And this year so far, tell us where you're at because that's so exciting too.
So this year we've closed 16 deals already. We have 7 in escrow, and we've already closed about 33 million.
And it is May 6th today, by the way. So 4 months into the year.
Yep. And I would say we're about maybe 70% on listings again this year.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
As you had it before.
Yeah.
You and I
Mhm.
spoke, you told me you took several months off last
Yep.
year. And I'm glad you're feeling great and you're
Yep.
recovered. I know it was not an easy thing. So
Nope.
Gina, where does your business come from? Tell us what you do because obviously you and I worked together for many years. Um,
Right.
Tell us a little bit of where it's coming from today and like the evolution of what you used to do and where you're
Sure.
at today.
Sure. Most of our business is repeat and referral clients, so about 50% repeat and referral clients. We also get a lot of new business through marketing. So our marketing is postcards. We do a lot of direct mail, and I've been doing that for years. So I have a farm, and I'm very well known in that area. So we get a ton of business from that. We're also Zillow Premier agents, so we do a fair amount of business on the inbound Zillow calls. We used to do a lot of business through open houses and things like that. Most people coming through open houses these days are represented, although we do occasionally pick up a great buyer at an open house or
Mhm.
a seller who's checking us out.
Yeah.
But the sort of evolution of my career is, I started out 100 years ago, actually 20. Not really knowing what I was doing. And I ended up at Keller Williams, which I really loved for the training there. And that's where I met you. And we really focused on a lot of the basics. So lead generation has always been the name of the game for me. Back in the old days, I did a lot of cold calling with increasing sort of laws and controls around that. I don't do any much cold calling anymore. If you're going to follow the rules, it really lowers the number of people that you can call. So these days, I actually door knock and call into my database. But I've done these things in the past. So door knocking and open houses in the I'm sorry, cold calling and open houses in the beginning were huge sources of business for me. I started farming an area, a few years into the business, where not only did I door knock, cold call, hold open houses, get listings, and uh, a postcard. So I would send postcards to this particular area. And I've done that for years and years now. So you get a lot of business from that. And over the last several years, things have shifted more to working my repeat and referral business. Door knocking, we're actually looking at a new farm now to increase our business. So we're working in a new farm now where we're door knocking. And I do a fair amount of follow ups with any of the inbound calls that we've had over the past. So I do spend time on the phone. Those aren't quite cold calls because I've connected with these people in the past, but they're not particularly warm either because we have so many thousands of people we've connected with as well. It's always a source of business there too, sort of these colder leads.
So you're door
Yeah.
knocking. You said you have a new farm area, but you're still
Mhm.
working that original one where
Of
you,
course, that's our bread and butter. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
And that's the Santa Monica condo market. So
Uh-huh.
I sell more condos in Santa Monica than anyone, and I have for several years.
So talk to us about how do you structure this cold calling, excuse me, the door knocking now. I want to go back
Sure.
to the cold calling that you used to do in a little while because this I want also new agents to realize that you're not where you're at today with this amount of business and huge income without putting in a lot of work in the beginning doing different things, like you said, you started
Right.
years ago, you didn't know anything. So right now though, as far as door knocking, what do? You show up, do you have something you give to them? What
Yeah.
kind of conversation, what kind of
Yeah.
script do you use? Tell us about that.
Sure. So I found just in my experience that if you're going to door knock, you pick a geographic farm. And so you want to pick a geographic farm that has sufficient turnover. That's an appealing area to you. So you don't want to drive too far away. It should be easy to get to. And so for me, it's, a few blocks from here. So pick a geographic farm. I study the inventory. So every day I look at the MLS and I look at what's active and in escrow and sold. So I know what's happening and what prices are and how fast things are going and who the players are as well. I
Mhm.
also like to know who the seller and buyer is. So not only do I look at the agents, I look at who the principals were as well. So I'm doing that every day to become familiar with the market. It takes 5-10 minutes to do that.
Mhm.
And over time, you're an expert. Over 3 weeks, you're an expert. So something really worth doing. And then we pick a geographic farm and we just start up and down the streets. And when we're done with door knocking all of it, we start over again. And so right now we're going about 3 days a week and sometimes more, but right now it's about 3 days a week.
So,
So we knock on the door. Sure.
how many homes are in this farm?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but not that many, about 2,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
2,000 approximately. Yeah, it doesn't have
Mhm.
to be an exact number, just so that they
Yeah.
have an idea. And I want to ask you before you go on. You said
Mhm.
rate of turnover. Explain that. What do you mean by? I know what it is, but I want the people watching to understand what you're talking about. And what rate of turnover are you looking for in this farm when you're selecting it?
Well, it's got to be sustainable. So I worked a smaller farm when I first started selling real estate. It's only 500 homes, and it had a low turnover rate, meaning there were only about 10 sales a year.
Mm,
And so, because the turnover rate was so low and so many agents were vying for those listings, it was very hard to get well, actually, it was easy to get market share. You do two, you've got 20%, but it was hard to get a sustainable number of deals. And so, what you want is an area where there's a lot of sales in a year, where that if you get 1 or 2 or 3% of those sales, that's going to be worth your time and effort, right?
yeah,
So in this particular neighborhood, there's tons of turnover. So that's, it's fine. But that's what you want to look for. Is it sustainable? If you can get 1 or 2 or 3% of that market share in a year, that's a good amount of business to be putting this much time into it. And of course, then you would grow and leverage on that moving
I love
forward.
what you said about studying the MLS stats to be an expert. Because when you're
Mhm.
in a farm an area, you definitely need to be doing that. So I don't know. I interrupted you, so I don't know where you were going. So
Sure.
three days a week. And
Yep.
how long do you think approximately it takes? Because you said once you're done with that area, you start over. So,
Right. It takes a few months. So I think we get through it like 3 times a year. Yeah.
okay. And what kind of script do you use? So you knock on the door, and what do you say?
Well, I want to back up before I talk about the script. So, one of the things that I found when I first started farming is that you can't just knock on doors and you can't just postcard. You really need to start doing layers of different activities when you're doing this, right? So, when I first started farming, I would cold call. And now I'm not doing a lot of that. But we door knock and we send mailers. We can also just hand out flyers. So we do a very nice, high quality bifold mailer that has several articles on it. Where you have to get the whole article, you have to go to the QR code or our website. It always has a recipe for something, and then we put market stats as well about what happened in the last month, average price, number of sales, that kind of thing. And then we put a featured listing. And so, since we're not selling a lot of property in this farm yet, if we have a listing or a buyer represented sale, we use that on the newsletter. But if we don't, I ask permission from one of my colleagues who's selling there to say, can I put your sale in? And I put, I attribute it to them in very small print underneath, but it's just to get, affiliated with that market. And so we're starting to get phone calls and things like that. Okay. So when you kind of have to do more than one thing if you're going to go after a particular farm, you have to start layering the activities. So you could also hand out a very simple market update. Anything with your name on it is 100% fine. But be consistent, right? So every month we send out this newsletter. So when we're door knocking, we have a door knocking version of our mailer. The mailer has an address for, field on it and the mailing instructions and all of that. So we have just a different format that we hand out in the same content. And so we'll just hand that out. And so if people sort of, we're not interested, I get bugged by realtors all the time, we always hand them the flyer because I want them to know who I am. And I say, well, I know you're not interested, but I'm going to give you my flyer just so you know who's on your doorstep. And so they take it, so it's reaffirming, right? My name and face with my brand that I'm in this neighborhood. And when I introduce myself, I use my full name. So I want people, again, that's my brand, the Regina Vanicola Real Estate Group. When hi, it's Regina Vanicola with Compass. We're realtors in the neighborhood. We're just checking in today. We have 5 families who are trying to buy in your area. And of course, I'm sure you're aware there's nothing on the market right now. So it's one of our scripts. Another script we've used in the past is we just sold a property. We just sold your neighbor's property a few doors away. They got X price. We're wondering if you had thought about selling. So anything like that you can say. You can talk. You don't even have to talk about your own listing. One of your neighbors just sold their house. They got a phenomenal price. They got 16 offers on the property. There's 15 unhappy people out there right now. Any thoughts about selling?
Yeah, you know what I love about everything you're saying? Everyone, everyone in this country either owns a home or wants to own a home. If they're renting, they want to own.
Yep.
So they fall into one of those 2 categories, which means that whether you own or you want to someday own a home, you're interested in what's happening with real estate prices, what's happening. You're talking about stats and what's sold in the area and how much is. Everybody is interested in that. So it's a great conversation to have. I'm sure.
And it's easy because all of that information is available to you. You know who just sold their house or who just listed their house if you're looking at the MLS every day. So there's always something to talk about, and it doesn't have to be your listing. If there's opportunity there, you're going to get in front of that opportunity.
Yeah. And so when you were calling in the beginning, right? I mean, there are a lot of agents today that they call. I mean, it's a thing. I know you said, regulations, and there are a lot of areas in the country where you can call. I built my entire business on the phone. I never door knocked. I had limited time, and a lot of agents are doing it that way. So it depends on what you prefer to do. When you were calling, was it kind of the same conversation? I just list,
Yes.
sold, same thing, right?
Yes.
Because I know a lot of
And
agents.
I would identify myself with my full name because I want them to hear my full name, because that's another layer, right? They're getting mailers, they're seeing my signs on the corner. Maybe I'm doing some social media advertising that's targeted on zip codes. It's another layer of reinforcement of my name and my brand. So I
Yes.
would always use my full name and, just say, hey, it's Regina Vanicola. I live and work in the neighborhood. I'm just checking in with you to say, either prices are up, or, this is what's happening in the market, or we just sold a property, or we just listed a property. We'd love to invite you.
Yes. And I
Yes.
imagine that, well, at this point, even in the beginning, I think these are they're a lot easier. You know that I love Facebooks and expireds, and I know you don't have a lot of them there. But these types of conversations are easier because people
Yes.
are interested in the information that you're sharing versus, and for someone saying, no, I'm not interested. I don't want to pay a commission. So these are warm. These are amazing, and you've built an
Yeah.
incredible business with all of this. So, um, social media. You said you do a little bit of social media advertising. Tell me about that.
So, about a year ago, I was watching several agents who are in my area who are really effective, I think very slick social media, but I don't think they get a lot of business from it.
Mm,
And so, like one agent in my area, she's got like 20,000 followers and her content is excellent, but she only did about 25 or 30 million last year in sales. And so when I look at that, I think, is this the right model for me to follow? There's another agent in my area, similar thing, but she's doing a lot more business. I don't know how much of it's from social media, but she's quite successful and her marketing's really, really amazing. And I look at it and I just groan because this is not what I want to do with my life. Okay. I don't want to be posting like personal information about myself. And that's not how I operate. And so I did some research on other agents who were doing it successfully and not. And I thought, look, I'm doing just fine without doing becoming the next, TikTok star. Okay. And so I really thought, I'm not going to try. Okay. I'm not going to try. What I'm going to do is focus on the other areas of marketing that I do that really works. So on my personal Instagram, I just post our generic real estate sort of content and occasionally something more interesting. So our just listed, our just sold, maybe some market data and things like that, but not a ton of personal videos or anything like that. This is the absolute opposite of what you will be told as an agent on what you need to be doing on social media.
mhm.
Let's see how next year works. Okay. So, in any event, we do some social media advertising, which are paid ads through the Compass brokerage has a, corporate wide sort of account. We can use that and we can do paid ads on Instagram and Facebook. We do those. And I get a few inquiries off of those, but we haven't translated any of those into actual business yet. But my thought directly, but my thought is there's always the indirect layering of that information and we target those ads geographically. And so it's just another reinforcement of our brand. So I think there's a lot of ways to use social media, and I'm probably not going to use all of them. And I don't think you have to either as an agent. So, yeah.
Talk to us about Zillow because you said you have a Zillow Premier
Sure.
account. So how does that work? What do you get from it?
So Zillow's a love-hate relationship, of course. I think many agents have the same relationship. But because I've been a Zillow Premier agent for 15 years or even longer, I have a very good foothold. And again, I have I have some brand awareness here that people will look me up on Zillow. So it's added like a little bit of background information for me for people who know my name and look me up on Zillow. I might get listing links that way. Okay, because people are looking at my production on Zillow and they're looking at my reviews. That's still effective. But when they switched to a more anonymous routing, which they did, I think, a year ago, used to be they'd show three faces and they get picked. I think we got a lot more brand recognition then. Now it's an anonymous routing of the inquiry. So you have to work a little bit more. It's a much colder lead as a result. So you have to work a little bit more on finding out who's the real buyer or potentially seller, who isn't, because there's a lot of very low quality leads, and then decide to work, on transferring that into, business.
So these
So
please come to you via email?
yeah, actually through via phone. So it's a live transfer typically, and those live transfers go to the buyer's agents. I don't even receive them.
So live, you mean the phone rings and there's a person.
Yes.
Okay. What
Yep.
do you know what kind of script they use? Because they don't come to you.
Um, Not offhand. I never learned it because I'm not dealing with the inbound Zillow leads.
You're one thing, yes.
But from what I remember, we've had some trainings with Zillow, and really the idea is to get the appointment.
Mhm.
And so really changing that focus to getting the appointment, setting up the showing. We used to be, we wanted to pre-qualify people. When we started with Zillow, we really wanted to pre-qualify them before we would show them a house. Now you show them a house and then you pre-qualify them
Okay, yeah.
because it's the expectation has changed. It's a more immediate response is required. And so now we focus on getting the appointment and then starting the dialogue.
And once you're in person, it's a lot easier, I'm
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
One thing I wanted to mention on lead generation,
Yes.
we so when I stopped doing a lot of cold calling, I started doing some more mass texting. Now these are to people I've already connected with. And so if they came in inbound through Zillow or they came in inbound through an open house or my sphere, they've already opted in on paper or through the Zillow platform.
Mhm.
And so I have 4,500 people in my database, and I will mass text into my database. That's what my CRM allows me to do. So yesterday, for example, I had a very quiet day, so I just got into like making contacts, and I can send 150 text messages at a time. Usually it's about a new listing, but the most effective one is about a listing that's not yet on the market. So the teaser ones. So, with clear cooperation, you're supposed to only do that the day before, but you can send a teaser and leave the price off. We've got this great new listing, describe it, no price, and the response rate is much higher than calling, emailing, etc. And so people really do respond via text. And it's a really great way to keep the communication going with the people in your database, especially those colder leads who maybe we didn't work very hard because they weren't ready when they came in through Zillow or we met at an open house. But over time, I'm always plucking buyers and sellers out of these people that I've never really even met, just by going through this systematic texting and letting people know about our new listings. It's a really effective communication right now because people don't really want to pick up the phone.
Yes. You said layers, yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Your farm area, you door knock, you send the postcards, you have obviously they're in this database or CRM that you text to. Do you have an email newsletter, something they receive from you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we also send a monthly newsletter to my database. It's almost the same content as the newsletter we send to our new farm, but it's geared a little bit more generically. So we might add a little bit more information. You can get full articles there. You don't have to go to our website, and we do send that out monthly. Yeah, a monthly newsletter. Mhm.
How often? Regina, what advice do you have for a brand new agent? They're like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. There's so many options out there. What would you tell them to do, how to start so that they someday can have the business you have?
I think the first thing to do is to realize, acknowledge, accept, and commit to the fact that your primary job is lead generation.
Mm,
That is the job. There is nothing in real estate that can't be solved by making another phone call or talking to another person or generating more leads.
wow.
Every single problem is fixed by more lead generation.
Mm,
So you had a bad day, get on the phone. Go knock on the doors. Escrow blew up, go talk to some people, Sold the biggest property of your life, talk to some people.
tell everybody about it, right?
Having trouble paying the rent, go talk to some people. Fired by a client, go talk to some people. Every single thing that can happen to you as a realtor is solved by more lead generation because every person that you talk to gets you closer to the next paycheck.
Wow.
And so you just look at it as you're going to keep talking to all these people, paycheck, talk to more people, paycheck, talk to more people, paycheck. That's how it works. I went on, I think, 8 or 10 listing appointments in the last several weeks, didn't get any of them. Now, I had a 5-minute pity party for myself yesterday. And I said, you know what? That just means I'm going to get the next 10 in a row
Mm-hmm.
because it all averages out in the end, you know? So part of my language, but when I'm getting my ass kicked in real estate, which will happen sometimes,
Oh, yeah.
get on the phone and make more calls, go out and knock on more doors, talk to more people, and it will solve the problem. So
I am just like, you couldn't have said this any better. I love every word that you said, because it's exactly how I think. You know that. You know me.
yeah.
Mm,
And so the job is building the business. The job is not selling the house. Selling the house is incidental.
mm, mm.
The business of real estate is developing business, lead generation, talking to people. That's all it is, prospecting. That is the job.
And it's amazing.
Selling the house is incidental.
Yeah, I love that. And it's amazing how that the lead generation or prospecting or cold calling, it's all the same. Or that's what agents resist the most. That's
But that's the job.
right.
And it's my belief that if I don't lead generate, I did not work that day. It's not a work day unless I did some lead generation. And sometimes, you have crazy days and everything's blowing up and the phone's ringing off the hook and, the dog needs to go to the vet and whatever, the kids are homesick, whatever those things are. Talk to 5 people. It doesn't have to be 20 or 50. Talk to 5 because some is infinitely better than none. And if you do that every day, 20 today, 5 tomorrow, 30 the next day, 11, 22, you hit 100 a week. And that's my goal, is 100 a week.
A habit, it's a discipline.
Mhm.
No matter what's going on, what you said is so perfect, because
Yeah.
a lot of agents, they're waiting for that day when there's nothing going on. Like, that's never gonna happen,
Yeah.
Something's always going on. And if you're gonna use that as a reason why you don't lead generate, well then, go get a real job.
Exactly. On Tuesday is our broker caravan here. It's our broker's open house. So I had to hold an open house. And then I had a doctor's appointment in the afternoon, which I had to drive, there's LA can't get anywhere quickly. And so I didn't get done with that. I'd been out of the office like most of the day. I didn't get done till about 3:45, almost 4 o'clock.
Mm.
And I drove by my house to go back to the office for my doctor's appointment because I hadn't done any lead generation yet. And I went back to the office and I talked to, I think, 11 or 12 or 13 people. So not like the most that I've ever talked to,
Right.
but like it takes down any stress I'm having by a huge amount when I just get that part done.
So how come it reduces your stress? Because I bet a lot of people here are like, what? I'd be just more stressed out if I actually have to do it. And so I have, and you could tell me your answer. I think agents, even though they don't want to do it and they resist doing it, they know that they're supposed to be doing it and they should be doing. And because
Right.
they don't, they live with the constant mental anguish and guilt of not doing it.
Yes.
It's more stressful than anything else. But when you say it reduce stress, what did you mean?
It's always good when it's done, right? You always feel better when it's done. I always feel better when it's done. My dad was a runner his whole life. Now he's 80, almost 83, so he walks. But I remember him saying about running, like, was it a good run? And he would always say, it's always good when it's done. And so that's the way I think about my lead generation. It's always good when it's done. So I just know that I'm going to feel better and I don't have to take that stress. On Tuesday, I didn't have to take that stress home with me of feeling like I didn't get anything accomplished that day. And so when I'm done lead generating, it's the biggest check mark there is on my to-do list is over and done with. And everything else is a relief. And the other thing about like doing this stuff is like cold calling and texting and door knocking and even, doing a great open house and talking to 100, we have 100, 200 people come through open houses these days. That's a lot of people to talk to. Once you do that, it's a huge relief that that is over with, that I've done my job. I feel good because I did the right thing.
Yes.
My task, if I do nothing else that day, right, I'm done.
You built your entire business. This is the foundation of everything you've always done.
Mhm.
Yeah, anybody can look at you now and say, "Oh my gosh, she's making all this money." Because you are. Figure it out. Her average price is 1.9. She sold 56 homes last year, and it was a slow year. She didn't work half of the year, so you could figure it out. But it's
Yeah.
foundation of it all. There's layers, and you're farming. Bottom line is, talk to people.
Yep.
There's no way around it. Yeah, beautiful. I
And it
yes.
works. And you're throwing it out to the universe. So even if like the people that I don't, it's funny. I'm knocking in this neighborhood and getting frustrated because it's a very high price point. Um, Trying to break into this neighborhood and I get discouraged like any normal human will because it's not happening as fast as I want it to happen. And then an agent calls me out of the blue with a referral in that neighborhood. It's a lease, but I don't care. It's a sign out in that neighborhood.
Yes.
And I feel that if I wasn't out doing that stuff, a referral wouldn't happen because I'm calling to the universe, right? I'm
You
calling to the
did
universe.
that 100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then yesterday, I'm like, oh, we're having a little slowdown. So we've had a huge first 4 months, and now we're having a little slowdown. The market, I think, is a little bumpy because of the interest rates. Um, and so I'm, lamenting like the pipeline. And another friend of mine says, oh, I have a referral for you, $2 million buyer. And she's probably going to have to go to three. Great.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
but if I'm not out doing my other stuff, those calls just don't seem to come.
Exactly. Absolutely. I love every minute of it. Maybe some people are watching like, what exactly are they talking about? That's how it works. I know, absolutely. Regina, this was incredible. I'm
Thank
so grateful. Thank you so much for agreeing. Well, to do it, yes, you said yes right away. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so fun. Um, Anyone that needs an amazing agent in Santa Monica, California, Regina Vanicola, double N. There she is. Thank you,
you. Yes.
friend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jackie, thank you. You've been a huge part of my real estate career. I value you. I really, really do. Thank you.
Value you too. You're gonna come visit me in Miami sometime.
Absolutely.
All right, girl.
Thank you.
See you
Bye
soon.
bye.